soldiers heard it before they saw it. Some of them never saw it at all. It was 1981. The Shalamshi marshes, on the southern border between Iran and Iraq. A sound in the sky that did not belong to any aircraft they had been trained to recognize. Too small for a fighter, too high for a helicopter, too steady for a bird. Their officers, when consulted, could not explain it. Their air defense gunners, when the object appeared on radar, saw a return so small they assumed it was a bird and did not fire. It was not a bird. It was carrying a camera, and it was photographing them. The men in the Iraqi trenches at Shalamshi in 1981 were among the first soldiers in modern military history to be watched by a machine they could not see. They would not be the last.
لنرى جنودنا الأبطال وهم يطهرون آخر ما فيها من جيوب المقاومة.
Iran, in 1980, was a country that had been abandoned by its own air force. A year earlier, the revolution had ended 40 years of alliance with the United States. Overnight, the diplomats went home. The technicians went home. The spare parts stopped coming. The most advanced fighter jets in the Middle East, F-14 Tomcats, F-4 Phantoms, F-5s, sat on Iranian runways, and every hour they sat there, they became more useless. On the 22nd of September, 1980, Iraq attacked. The world took a side. The Soviet Union sold Iraq fighters. France sold Iraq missiles. West Germany sold Iraq the chemicals to make the gas that would kill Iranian conscripts by the tens of thousands. American intelligence quietly shared satellite photographs. Everyone armed Iraq. Nobody armed Iran. So the Iranians looked at what they had left, which was almost nothing. And they did the only thing left to do. They started building. The first drones were built in universities. Not in factories, not on production lines, in workshops the size of a small classroom, by students and their professors working after their normal teaching hours ended, using whatever they could find. The frames were carved from balsa wood. The wings were covered in doped fabric, the same fabric that had covered biplane wings in the First World War. The engines were the kind hobbyists used to fly model aeroplanes in parks. The radios were built from components salvaged from television sets. And the cameras, the reason any of it mattered, were 35mm still cameras, the kind you might buy in a shop, adapted to release their shutters by remote command. There were 4 of them. Sometime in 1981, the exact date has never been recorded, 4 Iranian engineers took those 4 aircraft to the marshes at Shalamsha. They set them up on the ground. They started the engines. They watched the aircraft climb into the sky. And they waited. The aircraft came back. The film was developed by hand. On the negatives were Iraqi trenches, Iraqi artillery, Iraqi men who had never seen the machine that had photographed them, and never would. The engineers looked at the photographs for a long time. Then they went back to the workshop and started building more. By 1985, what had started with 4 aircraft had become an institution. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps formed a new subsidiary that year. They called it Qaad's Aviation Industry. Its purpose was to take what the universities had proved and turn it into something that could be manufactured at scale by a country that could not import a single foreign component. The aircraft they designed had a name that meant something specific. They called it Mohajer. In English, the word is usually translated as migrant. In Persian, it means something more specific, a traveler who leaves home for a purpose and returns. The aircraft took off. It traveled to the enemy. It came home. It was a migrant. 2.5 meters long, 3 meters of wingspan, 45 kilograms empty. It could be carried by 2 men, launched from the back of a truck, recovered in a field. It did not need a runway. It did not need a hangar. And it did not need a pilot who could die. In February 1986, Iran launched the largest offensive of the war so far. The objective was the Faw Peninsula, a spit of Iraqi land at the mouth of the Shahed al-Arab, defended by minefields and artillery and 30,000 men. Iran needed to know exactly where those defenses were. The Mohajers flew at night, over the water, low enough that the men on the ground could not hear them over the sound of the war, high enough that they could photograph everything below. On the 10th of February, Iranian troops crossed the water and took the peninsula. It was one of the largest Iranian victories of the war. Western defense analysts, writing decades later, would argue about how much credit the drones deserved. Some said they had been decisive. Others said the ground maneuver would have succeeded anyway. But on one point, the analysts agreed. Nobody else in the world was doing this. Not the Americans, not the Soviets, not the Israelis. Nobody. The country that could not buy a fighter jet had built something the countries that could buy anything had not yet thought to build. The Mohajer was not the only aircraft they built. In September 1986, a different Iranian defense manufacturer, the Iran Aircraft Manufacturing Industry, or HISA, began mass-producing a second type. They called it the Ababil. In Persian, the word means swallow. The difference between the two aircraft was small on paper. Both were propeller-driven. Both were small. Both carried a payload. The Mohajer went out to sea and came back. The Ababil, in its first form, was designed to go out and not come back. The specifications of the Ababil one have never been officially released. No photographs of it have surfaced publicly. What is known comes from later Iranian statements and from Western analysts reconstructing the design from indirect evidence. What was known was this: it carried 40 kilograms of explosive. It was designed to fly to a target, orbit until it found something worth attacking, and then dive into it. The world would eventually invent a name for this kind of weapon: loitering munition, kamikaze drone, suicide UAV. In 1986, none of those terms existed yet. In Isfahan, at Hessa, they had a simpler word for it: swallow. Over 8 years of war, Iranian drones flew 940 missions. They came back with 54,000 photographs, 54,000 images of Iraqi trenches, Iraqi artillery positions, Iraqi supply routes, Iraqi men who had no idea they had been seen. All of it gathered by aircraft that had been built at the start out of balsa wood and salvaged television parts, by engineers who had learned the craft by teaching themselves. 940 flights, no pilot lost. On the 20th of August 1988, the Iran-Iraq War ended in a ceasefire. Neither side had won. Both sides had lost a generation of their young men. Iraq went back to being armed by the world. Iran went back to being armed by itself. COD's aviation industry did not close. Hessa did not stop building Ababils. The workshops kept working. The engineers kept teaching. The Rod Brigade kept training. What Iran had built in those 8 years was not just aircraft. It was an institution. Universities that knew the discipline, factories that could produce the components, a doctrine that treated unmanned aircraft as ordinary. In 1988, no other country in the world had that. The engineers who built the first Iranian drones did not know what they had done. They thought they had built a way to see the enemy. They thought they had built a way to keep their pilots alive. They thought they had solved the problem of the country the world would not sell to. They had built something else. They had built a category of weapon that did not yet have a name, a kind of aircraft that would, in the decades to come, appear in places nobody in 1985 could have imagined. Over cities, over ships, over conflicts that had not yet begun in countries that were, in 1985, at peace. The first drone war did not happen in the last few years. It happened in a marsh on a border most Western viewers cannot find on a map in 1981. The world just wasn't watching.